Hello everyone, today's game is between women's grandmaster Corina Peptan and with the white pieces and with the black pieces, uh, international master at the time and now grandmaster Maurice Ashley with the black pieces. So this game started out as a Alapin Sicilian variation after these opening moves, and it's an interesting end game that occurred that I want to get to, but I just want to, breeze through the opening real quick so you can see how the game started off. Usually in these Alpine situations, of course, white uses the primitive C3 to, with the purpose of just building up the classical pawn center. Uh, just like you see in analogous openings like the Gioco piano where C3 is played, Rui Lopez, same thing, C3 followed by D4. So here in the Sicilian, the idea is exactly the same. It's a real old concept, just to build up the big powerful center. Um, as white, of course, the downside is that the C3 pawn naturally blocks the development of the knight, and this gives black more flexibility uh, in turn. Here, Ashley decided to play knight f6, which is a good continuation, and you get some type of similar play, a la the Alacon's defense, and I like to play knight f6 like this too. I also made another video basically about this opening where black can save time in this preparation, where you can play the same system against the C3 Sicilian and the Smith-Morra Gambit, right? The exact same opening. So perhaps I'll post a link to that video at the end of this video. Okay, so white gains his space, right? Because black, black play a little modest. Like I said, this is more provocative setup. There's many different continuations here because of the C3 pawn being here blocking this knight. D5 is often a move that is played immediately because you don't have to worry about the loss of tempo with the queen. Another move that's played also is E6 followed by D5. So there's many ways of equality. There was also a great game too by between a few years ago between Magnus Carlsen and Magnus Carlsen had the black pieces. Schmierden, um, uh, Grandmaster Schmierden, who played this opening against Carlsen, they actually almost won the game. So it can be a dangerous system. So here, getting back to the game, white builds up his classical center, and black occupies the D5 square. Again, this reminds me of like Alacon defense and similarity. White has his space, and black, is a little bit cramped, but he has some holes in the white position, namely on D5 to exploit. So knight C3 challenges that. Knight takes C3, B takes C3, which gives white a strong center. Queen C7. Black starts attacking the base of the pawn chain immediately. Bishop D2, D6. Now he starts attacking the top of the pawn chain because you have to remember, central, space in the center and control of the center is an advantage. If white can keep this structure intact perfectly, it will be an advantage to him going forward. So just because you're giving the opponent leeway in the opening to take more territory and space doesn't mean you want to keep, you want to allow him to keep that situation. So all of these like hyper modern openings and things like that are based around that concept. Is they allow the opponent to set up a structure, but then your idea and argument is to counterattack vigorously against that structure to prove that it was prematurely set up. If white is able to consolidate everything, then he'll just simply have an advantage here. Bishop D3. Knight D7, so you can see the attack against the center continues. Castle, D takes E5. Knight takes, D takes. So a few pieces come off the board. This is good for black. Bishop C5. And now, let me just go back to before, to after D takes E5 here. Um, Now, D takes E5 is possible also, but again, this is a concept that you might see um, in the Alapin defense. It's sometimes when the knight doesn't capture, then this pawn can become very weak. Okay, so like for example, of course you see it's already attacked twice here, but here will be premature. After knight takes E5, bishop at 4, bishop D6 here, here, and then you have this move queen A4 check, and then you have this double attack on the rook and the bishop. So you have to be careful with that, and then black is forced to play bishop takes H2. So this pawn comes under scrutiny here, except in this position, it can't be captured right away by black. So usually what will happen is move like bishop B7 first, attacking the knight, rook E1, G6, bishop F4, bishop G7, and you can see the build up against the pawn. Okay, is rather stressful for white here. Okay, this is why white will take with the knight first. So the pieces eliminated here. D takes and had the same thing. If queen takes E5 here, then white will get a nice initiative. Notice black has no development in the position. Rook E1, queen C7, queen F3, bishop here, check, king D8, and queen G4. So this is fantastic for the price of a pawn. Fantastic position for white. So black is careful of just pawn grabbing, and he's accepting the fact that, okay, white has more space right now, but white also has some vulnerable looking pawns in the position. But first, let me catch up in development. Okay. So after bishop C5, queen G4 was played, and Maurice just simply played bishop B7. All right. The idea being, if greed takes place, then just castle with the idea of occupying the G file with combination of this bishop. So black is winning in that position. So instead of capturing this pawn and being greedy, bishop B5 check, bishop C6 by Maurice, bishop takes C6 by Peptan, queen takes C6, rook A D1, castles by Maurice, bishop G5, rook takes D1, rook takes D1, and now king B8. So why king B8? Well, Maurice realizes he can't, really contest the D file here. You have the bishop on G5 covering that square, and the rook is already there. So he just simply scoots the king over so that he can move the rook over to the C file, and also double down on this pawn here. So what has happened here? You can see black's pawn structure is perfect. I should have said it a little earlier, but white's game is based in this particular game anyways, based on dynamics, right? With this type of pawn structure, okay, it's not conducive to a fantastic end game. All right, this is a type of pawn structure where white has space, and his chances usually will lie, or her chances in this case will usually lie in middle game attacks where the king would be compromised, or caught in the middle of the board, or black would be forced to give up some other concessions, perhaps ruining his own pawn structure, or giving up material, things of that nature. All right. As the pieces get swapped off the board, white's weaknesses become more apparent, right? And black, is no longer in any danger. So then black is just sitting around with a nice pawn structure um, to exploit in the end game. So let's see how the game continued. So king b8, bishop h4, on the way to g3, rook c8, bishop g3, g6, queen f4, rook c7, h4 happened, h5, and notice also how white's bishop is becoming bad. Pawn stuck on the dark square here, stuck on the dark square here, and this pawn is also on the dark square. Conversely, you see the white pawns on the king side, or excuse me, all the pawns on the king side are on light squares for black, which makes this bishop shine right here. Queen d2. So this is white's main trump is just having occupation of this d file right now. Bishop e7. So you see the double attack here. You see pressure being put here. So now queen f4, counterattacking, and of course black cannot allow this move to happen right here. Queen takes f7. So Maurice just simply plays bishop c5, queen d2, and now king b7. Look like white would be content with the draw at this point. Queen d3, bishop e7 again, and now sorry about that, the phone rang, had to get that one. Okay, so where were we? So bishop e7 and c4. Now what's the idea behind c4? Of course, white doesn't want to be passive and just stuck protecting this pawn, so c4 is played. If queen takes c4 here, then queen f3 check is the idea, with the same plan. Say after king, let's put the king somewhere, king a6, then queen takes f7, and then black's hard work goes down the drain. So always, of course, be on alert for tactics. So this is why Maurice gets off of the diagonal and plays king b8. Now rook c1, and notice also how white is being tied up to these weaknesses now. So early in the middle game, white had a formidable center, right, and some prospects of attack in the position. But now you can see that as pieces were traded off, now you can see that these advanced pawns are now a liability, right? White's pawn structure is really hindering her in this situation. Rook d7, and finally after attacking the c pawn enough, causing white to weaken his piece placement, now Maurice is able to finally take over the d file. So that was instructive. Queen e3, now bishop c5 again. So you see the bishop continuously harassing, coming back and forth the c5 as convenient. Queen e2, instructive move again. Rook d4. Notice how black's pieces are improving, but keeping a constant eye on the weaknesses. Right now the rook is putting pressure here on c4 and on h4. King h2, queen d7. Now Maurice has full control over the d file. Okay, like if Maurice was commentating on this game, he would say explosive developments have taken place over the board. So now he's controlling the whole entire d file. He's intending, to play rook d2. And he's just slowly improving the position here. Rook c2. What else? Notice again, when you compare and contrast the pieces, white's pieces are all bad, black's are good. Rook d1, right? Again, if you study Nimzovich, 7th and 8th rank occupation by the rooks is really bad for the weaker side. Bishop f4, so just basically shuffling around. What else? Queen d3, offering the ending, right? Because basically White's only chance to win here is via checkmate. Okay, so Maurice nips that in the bud. Queen takes d3, rook takes d3, and now basically Maurice is just slowly going to improve his position in a better ending. So g3, and just look at this position, and you can analyze this for yourself as to why black is better. But just briefly, again, the pawn weakness in the position a2, c4, e5, although not technically isolated, might as well be isolated. These are all weaknesses in the white pawn structure. Okay, the second thing is the pieces, the remaining pieces. White's bishop is horrible. All the pawns on the white king side are on dark squares. This bishop is nothing but a glorified pawn. Basically, you could take this piece and put it right here, and you can't tell the difference between that and a bishop. Okay, the rook is very passive, right? Your mighty rook is passive in contrast to Maurice Ashley's rook. Okay, the kings are about equal at this point, but notice Maurice immediately starts improving the king. Okay, king g2, and I'll go faster through this part with light commentary. King c6. So again, what's instructive about this? First, he takes his worst piece, he improves it as much as he can. So he brings the king up. All right. The second thing I want you to understand and appreciate is notice how black will keep a constant finger on the weaknesses of black. In other words, by keeping your foot on the opponent's neck, right, it doesn't give him a chance to improve anything, right, because he always has to worry about losing material. All right. So king f1. What do I mean by that? Let's say white did this move. First of all, rook takes d2, bishop takes d2, b4. I'm sorry, bishop d4. Sorry. Let's say he tries to protect f5. Boom. Game over. Right? He's gonna drop material. That's what I'm talking about. That was just a quick example. Let's just say rook e1. Again, same thing. Bishop d4 with the idea of the king coming to c5 and then picking up this pawn. All right. So that's the thing. When you get in these type of positions, there's no need to rush. Okay. Just make sure that you keep your foot on the opponent's neck so that if he moves away from the defense, that his position is, or her position in this case, is just going to fall apart. Rook f3. This is a perfect example. So Maurice makes a move here, but notice white has to stay committed to this pawn now. All right. Bishop g5, just relegated to shuffling. Maurice plays a6, right? A move that wasn't necessary but doesn't harm the position. It's basically just hitting. It's like tennis, just hitting the ball back to the other side of the net. Like, okay, now you make a move because white is running out of quality moves. King g2, okay, good move, attacking the rook. But now the rook goes and keeps an eye on the a2 pawn now. So again, this rook is under a lot of pressure. King f1, just shuffling, hoping that black cannot improve the position. Black plays bishop d4. Again, putting pressure, attacking, and with the idea of also bringing the king in at some point. So eventually, with all of these attacks going on, eventually white's position must fold. Black just has to be patient. Now, in here, this situation, you see an attack by white. Again, when you're in the worst position, tactical shots usually do not work out in your favor. So, only way it will work out for white here is if black panicked and made a silly move, right? But when you're better and your opponent goes for broke like that, like a tactical, usually you just be patient and there's going to be a refutation right there on the board. Maurice finds a great move here. He just simply maintains the pressure. Again, A2 pawn is still being attacked, but now he's double attacking the E5 pawn. Therefore, the only move now that white can make is F4. He can't. There's no other way that he can defend it because it's attacked twice. So now Maurice simply plays bishop c5, offering a pure rook ending. And again, now if he trades, this is busted for white too, because there's no way to deal with this move right here that's coming up soon. Okay, so there's this. I'm sorry, that would be a check. Sorry, that was a quick oversight from not using the ending. I'm glad I caught that. Somebody would have pointed that out. Oh, he takes with check. So for example, here, let's say the king tries to get over, and you could just play this again. All right. And just maintain the pressure here. And then let's say if the king continues to move, he could play moves like rook a3, and that shows the king has moved too far away. So this means white would be relegated to the old shuffle, and then you can play king c5. Let's say king g2, and again maintaining the pressure in the position. Here, again some more shuffling. Then you just play a move like that, and you just winning. This is why Peptan played bishop d8, trying to keep the pieces on the board, trying to keep hope alive. Rook a3, attacking the pawn, just maintaining pressure. King g2, rook d3, attacking the bishop. Bishop f6, a5. Again, a move not totally necessary, but just sending the volley back to white. Bishop g5, and now bishop b4, king f2, king c5, and you could just see the walls just closing in on white here. Bishop e7 check, king d4. All right, and now finally bishop takes b4, a takes b4. There's no way to stop the win of the c pawn. Rook c3 now. Rook d2 check, king takes c4, and now king h3. Of course, none of these moves really work here. This pawn is too far advanced, and that move is just simply met by rook c2 check, followed by picking up the pawn, and this guy is gone. Therefore, king h3, hoping for opportunity to play a move like that. Of course, more pressure. Rook a3, and again, notice how a move like rook a3 keeps, or at least gives white second thoughts about moving this rook off that rank. Okay, he's gonna, if he moves this rook off the second rank, he immediately drops the pawn. Rook c2 check, king d3. So finally he goes for it. Rook c6. Maurice is brutal and doesn't play rook takes a2, but says, you know what, you're not getting anything, and plays b5. Rook b6, and now finally plays rook takes a2, rook takes b5, king c4. And of course, white could resign, but rook b7, rook a5. This protects black from any checks from behind. Rook takes f7. That's all too late. b3, rook c7, rook c5, and it is over. So good instructive game for Maurice, who was then an international master, rated about 2,500. That game took place in 1998, by the way. So Maurice at the time was he had full head of hair, and he's rated about 2,500. But who's still an international master, hadn't received his GM title. So instructive game. So I hope that you enjoyed that game. Please check my links below. Please support my channel by donating. Anything would definitely be a blessing. And also check the links below for DVDs/books related to whatever opening is presented on the board today. And today it was the Alapin Sicilian. So check those links below, and I'll see you guys on the next video.